Tell me about a domestic violence call for a police officer. I think because one of the proposals, the reason I bring this up is one of the proposals is just call a social worker instead of the police during any kind of domestic incident. And I feel like the public at large does not understand how dangerous those incidents are, not just for the person being abused in the home, but for law enforcement to show up. It's one of the most volatile situations out there. And I think people just feel like, oh, it's just a husband and a wife having an argument.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And I think statistics would bear you out. I think the statistics would show that it's some of the most dangerous calls. More police officers get hurt in these domestic violence cases. And why? It's because these are emotionally charged events. These are people acting on a passion. And we've all heard of crimes of passion, right? Overkill. When you see a homicide scene where someone is stabbed 1,000 times, they say, oh my God, this was somebody that was emotionally invested in this crime. And so a simple domestic violence call is charged with emotion. And so that's where reason and logic go out the window. And it's very difficult to deal with someone when they're acting on such passion and emotion. And the first thing that officers usually do in those situations, and more officers are trained to do this, is de-escalate the situation between the husband and wife. Now, there are jurisdictions where once you're called to a domestic violence scene, somebody has to be arrested, either the husband or the wife, most of the time the husband, but they have to be arrested because all too often in the old days, when everybody was pushed to their corners and the husband was forced to leave the house, he would come back an hour later and harm the wife or something like that. So now there have been law changes. There have been modifications to how officers handle these things. And that's what you do when you have a problem. That's what you do when you have a problem in policing or public safety. You look at the issue and you come up with solutions that are going to benefit the people that are involved. You don't talk about dismantling. We didn't talk about this years ago when domestic violence really exploded and police officers were responding to these things. 90% of their calls, what we did was we looked at the laws, we changed the laws, we also instituted different training for police officers and how they were going to handle this. And it worked. And that's what you do when you're confronted with a problem. You come up with solutions. You don't come up with dismantling as a solution.
Are most of the guys you served with in law enforcement, are they absolute bullies out there trying to attack the vulnerable people and specifically black people in this country, or are they out there trying to do some good?
Well, again, we only have to look at statistics. I mean, my personal situation, I was raised by a father who was an NYPD detective and later an NYPD sergeant. My brother was an NYPD detective and later an NYPD sergeant. I went into the FBI. I know I was raised in a cop family. I was raised by a cop. I know that 99%, if not more, of cops are good, hardworking, and want to do the job, want to keep people safe. That's what they're out there to do. They get hurt every day. They put their lives on the line for very little pay. My dad had his college degree. He could have went on into something else. He didn't have to do this, but he had instilled in him, from a family legacy, a call to service. And that's what these people are. They're called to service. Yes, there are mistakes. Yes, there are bad apples. Yes, there are criminals who wind up getting into the police department wearing a uniform. And we have mechanisms for dealing with that. If those mechanisms aren't operating properly, then we have to look at those mechanisms. We have to bolster them, and we have to realign them, and we have to fund them more so that those mechanisms to weed out bad cops are more strengthened. Okay, it's not a matter of punishing the police officers or punishing the police department, which seems to be this dismantling of the police department movement is about punishing the police departments, and they want their pound of flesh. 99.9%, and again, the statistics are out there. You can see how many police officers are. You can see how many calls they go on every day. All of this stuff is reported. The FBI maintains the UCR, the Uniform Crime Reporting, and you can look at the statistics about what the facts are. Get back to the facts. How many police officers commit these kind of crimes? How many police officers use excessive force? The numbers are there. Just look at them. Don't act on emotion. Act on fact. Act on the statistics that are compiled. Look at them. If you want to compile your own, then compile your own. But look at the facts. And then if you want to change the way something's happening, then do it based on facts, not emotion.
Hey, thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.